And for more on the impact of the U.S. government shutdown, we're joined by Ian Reifowitz. He's a professor of historical studies at Empire State University of New York, and also, as you can see here, the author of a book, Riling Up the Base, examining Trump's use of stereotypes through an interdisciplinary lens. Ian, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
Okay, now we're into our second day of the shutdown. Both sides firmly entrenched and blaming the other, as you heard. Now, at this point, it appears there are no signs of them coming together to end this shutdown. And it appears there's a real risk that this is going to drag on and drag the U.S. economy down with it.
Well, certainly, the government provides a good bit of funding for the economy. So that spigot being turned off, especially abruptly, can have an effect on economic growth. I don't think there's any question about that. So then it's a question really of who's going to feel the pressure first, who is going to feel like they are losing ground politically if they don't blink. The report from Diane Hodges mentioned a poll, and there are some other polls out there as well, on this healthcare question, right? A Washington Post poll found that the Democratic position on extending those Obamacare premium supports had more support by a whopping 71 to 29% margin over the Republican position of letting those subsidies expire. That's a pretty large gap.
Yeah. And Ian, if I can toss this one at you, Trump met with Russ Vought. He is the head of the Office of Management and Budget. They talked about layoffs at the federal agency, saying that they're going to be starting very soon. And there are real concerns that Vought simply wants to use this opportunity to push through more extreme conservative measures to cut Democratic policies. Vought, as we all know, was the chief architect of Project 2025, which is being instituted over a period of months with Trump in office. Your thoughts on this?
Well, Project 2025 came up a lot during the campaign. President Trump, then candidate, said, "I haven't read it. I'm not going to read it. It's not what I believe in." But then, of course, today he talked about Russ Vought, and he actually said Russ Vought of 2025 Project 2025 fame. So it's really fascinating to see that shift. I think what we can see is whether it's Elon Musk and Doge or it's Russ Vought and this shutdown, President Trump is using any opportunity he can find to shift the funds within the government away from things, even things that have been passed by Congress, been signed by a previous president, towards things that he considers, part of his agenda. So he's going to cut the things he doesn't like, and he's going to fund the things he does. This is another opportunity for him to do so. The question ultimately is, does he have the authority to do these things unilaterally? To do, the Constitution gives the Congress the power of the purse, as it's called, power of spending. Ultimately, I think it comes down to eventually whether the Supreme Court will allow him to do the things that he really wants to do.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point, whether it's Doge or Project 2025. And looking forward, the OMB is pulling funding from many states. Now, the question of whether this is legal and what impact it will have is certainly going to be debated. But there's also this possibility that they could have these mass firings and then hire MAGA faithful, conservative faithful to take these positions and then continue to push through their policies that Congress is doing and just give conservatives one more ace in the hole, if you will.
Right. There are rules about certain positions within the government. There are civil service rules. I'm a historian, right? So in the 19th century, presidents gave out jobs to their friends. That's a short version of the story. And then actually Republicans passed reforms, and then they were later supported by Democrats as well, that said, listen, there are professional jobs within the government, professional civil service jobs. We want people who are experts. We don't want them to be fired and replaced by friends. But in the end, President Trump thinks that he can change those rules, again, with the stroke of a pen. So on all of these things, it really comes down to how much power do the courts allow this president to have. If they don't check his power, he will be able to do exactly what you suggested, which is remove many people from positions in the government and replace them with those who think like him ideologically, whether or not they're qualified for the position.
You say that you are a professor of history. Let's talk about the markets and the history of the markets, because U.S. stocks, as we know, are drifting near record highs. Tech stocks really pushing them up, and Wall Street keeps ignoring the government shutdown. Investment in AI is largely seen as bolstering the markets at this point. Are what we're seeing here right now, in the past it's been called irrational exuberance. Do you agree with that? Do you think we're living in a bubble that could painfully burst?
I wouldn't take investment advice from me personally. I don't think the government shutdown is going to have a long-term effect on the markets. I think if they're driven by things like economic innovation. AI is certainly a big economic innovator. I don't think the government shutdown is going to last long enough to have a permanent effect on the market. If the government spending that's shut down for now is simply rerouted, once the shutdown is over, you're talking about a week, even 2 weeks. I don't think it would have a major effect. But there is evidence that a shutdown costs, I believe, a tenth of a point of economic growth for every week that the government is closed, with some of that being made up if the spending is sort of backdated and restored. So we'll have to see how long it goes. The polling does seem to favor the Democrats, not just on the healthcare though. I've looked at 4 different polls, and by an average of about 12 points, the Democrats' position, Republicans get more of the blame than Democrats for the shutdown as of right now.